It's an over-the-top week for over-the-top TV.
Comcast has launched Stream, its internet cable service in Boston, starting at $15 a month.
Sliver casting is starting to make big money only a decade after Saul coined the term.
And CNN shifts its iReports onto social networks long after Steve invented user-generated video news on MTV.
It's Hacking TV with Steve Rosenbaum.
And Saul Hansel.
Greetings. Welcome.
Welcome, everybody, all 12 of you.
Fellow hacker.
And lots to talk about. I've been talking for a long time, at least on this podcast and elsewhere, that the most important of all the things we're talking about is the shift of cable onto an over-the-top service. And I've also been arguing that we should not count the traditional players out. So Comcast is coming in and saying, okay, just buy our internet service, and then for $15 a month, we're going to give you something that's even better than the $15 a month HBO only service. It's HBO, local channels, and the public service crap that they have to give people, and online DVR, and a whole bunch of VOD.
Yeah, I think it makes absolutely no sense.
Why is that?
Because, it's a little like a department store saying, if we put hip music in the department store, people will stop shopping at the individual boutiques in the mall and they'll come back to the big box store. Like, people want choice. They want selection. They want to pay for Netflix. They want to pay for Hulu. They want to pay for CBS. And it's not a concern about saving money. It's about having choice. And so I think, Comcast selling me the local signals that I get for free with my antenna, they're not getting my money for that. I'm not doing it.
And did you think that our Aereo was an equally stupid idea?
I don't believe I used the word stupid. I thought Aereo was bold, and it was $9 a month, and it was meant for cable cutters. And I think that the court decision was wrong-headed. But
But if you say, if HBO is worth at least $10 a month, right, this gives you what Aereo gave you for $5 on top of HBO. So it's a better deal than Aereo, and it's a better deal than HBO Go. And I would argue that, and it's a better deal, you're right, you can buy CBS by itself for, was it $6 a month? So if you want to buy their over the top, the challenge to the argument that everybody wants a la carte is the overhead cost of keeping track of those subscriptions, and the marketing cost ends up adding a huge amount to the overall cost that everybody has to pay for. So it costs the same, in a certain sense, to charge you $5 a month for all the local channels as it does to charge you $5 a month for each of the local channels separately.
So that's great. Where does my Netflix subscription fit into that deal?
You buy Netflix. This is for people who don't buy cable but buy Comcast internet.
So I still have to buy a box. I still have to buy Apple.
You have to buy a Roku box. You don't have to buy a cable box.
Right.
So the idea is you're getting the TV everywhere, essentially, right? This is letting you log in to TV Everywhere apps on whatever device you want for a basic chunk of channels. And it will, to my mind, obviously extend with a series of tiers that will let you log into TV Everywhere, right?
Look, I admire Comcast for putting a bet on every number on the board, because if you've got enough cash that you can bet on, black and red, you're going to win, right? So this is a bet. But I just don't.
I mean, considering all the other stuff we talk about, like Watchable, which is their nonsensical clip aggregation service, and we don't need any more clip aggregation services.
Totally disagree.
Okay,
I think we
that's
desperately
good.
need. I think we desperately need good clip aggregation services. I'm just, I think we're waiting to see them organize themselves.
And I think that, clips are cool. Someone's going to figure out more and more of that, right? YouTube has a little bit of an investment in the clip business. But the TV networks, right? I mean, there's stuff on CBS that 10 million people watch, right? So to say we're going to make getting your CBS and your NBC more convenient is not a trivial proposition.
Part of what bothers me about this conversation is it's so easy to drag the web video conversation into TV. The stuff that we used to get on our cable subscription is going to get carved up into different boxes, but essentially nothing's going to change about what we're getting from web video. And I fundamentally think that that's a bummer. Like, I want to believe that our children and then our children's children are going to get smarter, better, more granular, more thoughtful, more enlightening, more detailed content than television in this new world.
Well, but the question is, I mean, you could, right, look at the text world, which has gone through this, right? So we have a world, we can talk about news, we can talk about books, right? In the books world, you've got two things overlapping. You have the mainstream publishers increasingly publishing on digital. I just saw HarperCollins, the News Corp imprint, has started a digital-first imprint, right? So they're going to, and why shouldn't they? Other people are doing it. Some people are on Amazon. Some books should go on paper and then digital, or paper and digital at the same time. Some might make sense on digital. They should try them all. Meanwhile, you've got the fan fiction movement and the Amazon-only movement and all these other things that are coexisting. Why wouldn't we, in the same thing, we'll have the choice to bottom up, but that doesn't mean that the guys at the top are going to do nothing, right?
Again, all I'm saying is if we want to close our eyes and wish for a better future, let's wish for a future where independent filmmakers make a living, where thoughtful documentary filmmakers make a living, where edgy newscasts about different healthy lifestyles or different environmental issues make a living, as opposed to, that's all I'm saying.
We're going to move to the next story, which is the same story, which is sliver casting. And the thing, Steve noticed this story that a couple of guys at Magid wrote, pulling together the amazing numbers for specialized over-the-top services to particular audiences. So Crunchyroll, which got bought by Peter Chernin, the former CEO of News Corp, or number 2 or whatever he was in News Corp, which has gone in the last 2 years from 20,000 or 200,000 subscribers to 700,000 subscribers, paying $7 a month for a bundle of anime. It's Netflix for anime. 700,000 times $7 a month is real business.
I love this story.
Okay.
I love this story. Like I think that Crunchyroll ought to be cloned and replicated at 1,000. I was going to say 1,000 points of light, but then we get into politics. But I mean, now to be fair, Crunchyroll, is a 7-year overnight success, and it was started by a bunch of guys that are deeply passionate about anime, and there's a great community there, and it's very, it's extraordinarily bottom up, user based, and I'm not sure that you can, the thing that Chernin and his folks are trying to figure out is, well, can't we just make 50 Crunchyrolls? Can't we make one for vegan cooking and one for, and what they're finding is, these communities can't just be like, it's not like a magic bean. You can't just put it in the earth and put some water on it and it crops up.
People are interested in certain stuff. The other example that they have is Worldwide Wrestling, which is a specialized product, a big...
Hey, my favorite.
Your favorite,
big
okay.
fan.
And do you pay $10 a month for the WWE streaming service?
I actually pay $20 because I get a little gold button. No, I do not.
Okay. Well, if you did, you would be part of contributing to a $150 million business for them already. 1.23 million subscribers. And so my point here is suddenly people get by the millions the idea that you can subscribe to a digital service the way you can subscribe to a magazine. And so there will be the Time magazines and the Sports Illustrated, and there will be, the, Organic Gardening Monthly, and they each have their economics, and there isn't a magazine for everything, but there are lots of them. And so I don't see the entry of HBO or CBS or any of these into that model is doing anything other than actually priming the pump for you and me or anybody else to say, hey, we're just like Netflix or we're just like HBO Go, except we have puppet shows or whatever we have.
So to me, the big story of the week and the one that potentially could be explosive is the new Vevo app.
And what is cool about the new Vevo app?
So it doesn't look like any other web content app you've ever seen. It actually looks more like Snapchat or Tinder. When you open it up, so you subscribe to the Vevo app and you open it up and it says, here's some artists. Tell us which ones you like. And much like Tinder, though I've never used Tinder, but if I were to have, you slide left or right to indicate which artists you like. And the app gets smarter and it says, oh, well, if you like Beyonce, then you'll like, and it drills down on related artists. And very quickly, it takes you to artists you've maybe never heard of. But there's no navigation. There's no menus. It's very elegant. It's simply a Tinder style swipe for like or dislike, and it then plays music for you. And, if you're a student of the relationship between YouTube and Vevo, which I am, they've been frenemies for as long as anyone can remember. All of their traffic comes from YouTube now, but not much revenue relative to the traffic. And the music labels that own Vevo don't like that much. And they'd like YouTube to fork over a much larger check. And YouTube is, starting to build its own music service. So there's no love between those two parties. They're like in a kind of a trapped, loveless marriage.
There's no love between anybody in the music business.
Yeah, maybe not. But if the Vevo app starts to take off and Vevo starts to get meaningful traffic from its audience directly to its app without Google as an intermediary, a big chunk of the traffic on YouTube comes from Vevo content.
And do you think, we should bring our teenagers back in. Do you think that since people are, kids are on YouTube for lots of music and lots of other stuff, that the music experience on Vevo is enough that in the brain of a teenager, they will put down the YouTube and pick up the Vevo in significant numbers?
No, I don't. But I do think this. In the battle between YouTube and Vevo now has all the cards, because all they have to say is, hey, Beyonce has a new song coming out, and Vevo's going to get it first for 12 seconds or an hour or half a day or a week. But if they start releasing artist-exclusive material, whether it's songs or backstage access or concerts or whatever, to the Vevo app, fans have no loyalty to YouTube.
Fans have more loyalty to YouTube than they do to Warner Music. But
or to Vevo, to be fair, or to Vevo.
But the thing is, so for every Beyonce where the label has the power, there are 10 up and coming acts where they're trying to plead with iTunes and YouTube or whatever for promotion, and so there's horse trading. And so if you just said, as record companies sometimes, we're going to sit on our hits and not invest in new stuff, they have all the cards. If they want to build audience, it's more collaborative.
Well, but just to be fair, do you have any evidence that YouTube has any tools at its disposal to promote artists?
I don't know about you. I know everybody else does. iTunes sure does. And when I was at AOL had 22 music properties, and there were people who did nothing but talk to the labels for AOL and horse trade this interview and that live session for this promotion. That's what the music business is about.
I don't think again, I'm not in the music business, so people feel free to speak to us via Twitter with the hashtag HackingTV and tell me I'm totally wrong. But I don't think YouTube, has lead in, or I think artists on YouTube, I think YouTubers promote each other. But I'm not sure that YouTube promotes music.
And if they did on some music page, nobody goes to it. That may well be. Although now they have their version of Apple Music, right? Where there's money going back and forth, and they may. I mean, I have not played with the new YouTube Music app,
which they're giving away with YouTube Red, which has a total of 4 subscribers. So,
right. But listen, you could make an argument. You know, when I said to my kids, "What do you think about commercial-free YouTube?" They said, "Yeah, good." And I said, "Would you pay for it?" No, but I'd ask you to pay for it.
All I'll say is this. Put a little bit of a sticky note on your computer, Vevo versus YouTube, and check back in with me in 90 days. Because if that app gets the kind of consumer adoption that they're hoping it will, and that the early reviews say it may, the power shift will change.
Well, here's the other. I mean, look, we know that one of the few places that computer personalization can really make people's lives better is personalized radio. Pandora has been doing it very, very well for a long time. Apple's got their version. Spotify's got their version. I'm sure Vevo has learned from that. And that's a product that people use by the tens of millions a day as a category. And how much you really want it to be video versus radio, I don't know. But you don't have to watch the damn screen. So Vevo will be successful in that, but I don't know how much they're going to own.
So in the Game Changer last week had like big, intense kind of throbbing changes. Let's dine out on T-Mobile for a bit.
Well, the New York Times in their lead editorial on Sunday, never mind, a little bit of politics in Europe or anything, had this wishy-washy editorial saying, this T-Mobile deal, which gives our subscribers access to HBO and Netflix without charging them for the bandwidth, might be bad, or it might be close to something that's bad. And the argument goes, and this is part of the net neutrality, that if Netflix or CBS or HBO can pay to have their content delivered for free, then the people who can't afford to pay, the little guys, are at a disadvantage. I'm not sure that's true, but what did you make? Are you on the barricades with the New York Times arguing their strongly worded wishy-washy point?
So a couple things. First of all, they called it BingeOn, which I thought was an unfortunately terrible name, but I get it. Okay. I love the CEO of T-Mobile. I just think that he's a feisty, troublemaking kind of guy who is willing to kind of rally the troops to make a difference. And I think, he calls AT&T and Verizon dumb and dumber. I mean, I think it's good for the industry to have a flamethrower CEO who's willing to cause trouble. There was some concern when they announced it that since everybody didn't have that it didn't have all the providers, it didn't have Facebook and it didn't have YouTube and it didn't have Snapchat were the 3 that were missing, the big ones that were missing, that they had not kind of signed up and as a result had not paid whatever the VIG was. And he strongly disagreed with that and said there was no VIG, it's free. They just need to tag their feeds with some special little bit of code so that, because they're not delivering the HD feed, to be clear. They're delivering an SD, kind of a slightly munged down version of these services. Now, I would argue that when you're talking about a phone, when you're talking about this guy, I don't mind having SD because I'm going to hold it, like that. But there were some, the AT&T and Verizon guys poo-pooed it and said, that they're delivering a damaged product.
As always, I think that we're in an era of choice. So if it really costs more, and it sort of a little bit costs more to deliver the HD, you can pay, you pay $1 more on iTunes for an HD movie. On Hulu now, you pay $4 or $5 extra a month if you want no commercials. But I'm interested in the bigger thing because I am troubled by this issue because I agree that if the cable companies had their way, they would, make people have to keep buying the $50 a month bundle that they buy for TV, and you want a regulatory regime that keeps them from, favoring their stuff over other people's stuff. But I'm not sure the consumer is entirely well served by saying that the cost of delivering video shouldn't in part be subsidized by the revenue going into the video company, the advertising and subscription fees. And it's also not realistic.
So what exactly did the Times say? And explain to me.
The Times said, but there are real concerns about whether such promotions could give telecommunications companies the ability to influence what services people use on the internet, benefiting some businesses and hurting others. Of course, businesses influence, right? We've been talking about how, the record companies, horse trade, and, used to be radio stations would play this, not that. And it was illegal to bribe a DJ, but it wasn't illegal to do all kinds of other things to influence.
I believe buying drugs for the DJ was considered legal.
Okay, right. So we have, and today, just to be clear, Netflix spends many tens of millions of dollars, probably hundreds of millions of dollars, putting equipment into every cable head end to run its own, what they call a content delivery network, so that they're saving money for the internet provider and making their service better by having Netflix pay the cost of at least getting the video to your neighborhood. So it's a fiction to say that guys with money aren't going to be at an advantage over guys who don't have money.
I guess I don't understand what the fear is, that T-Mobile will eviscerate Verizon and AT&T by giving away content, and then we'll come in once they've crushed the competition and start charging, huge prices.
Well, the fear is less about T-Mobile, the small guy which doesn't own any content, than Comcast, right? So the bad scenario would be, right, if essentially Comcast has their programming package. $15 is their starting offer, but it will go up to $100, and you get that without paying, where your internet service only costs $10 a month, but if you want enough bandwidth to watch somebody else's, say Netflix, you're going to have to spend $100 a month on the internet, because the people who own the pipes and the people who own the programming are bundling in such a way that it makes it, impossible to compete a la carte. Is Crunchyroll going to be a disadvantage to NBC Universal on Comcast?
As somebody who, I have a data plan with AT&T with a huge data cap, and I still, one of my sons will leave his phone on or not be on Wi-Fi when they thought they were on Wi-Fi, and we'll still get overages. And I think, the overages are painful and expensive and create stress in the family. And so I'm just, I'm all about, if T-Mobile's going to, I think, what I really think is that AT&T and Verizon both had long meetings where they said, when we look at video consumptions going up like this was before the T-Mobile announcement, they thought to themselves, man, we can just keep rolling over more data and charging more per month and having bigger plans. And they projected out 10 years and saw this fire hose of traffic and money. And I think T-Mobile has put a pin in that balloon. And I think that's awesome.
Again, right now, at this moment, there is a difference between your landline broadband and your cell phone. I think the policy issues apply equally to both.
Agreed.
And so you can see, right, so if people are going to watch either the Comcast package, or they're just going to buy Crunchyroll and Worldwide Wrestling and the Puppet Show channel that you and I are going to start and whatever else, suddenly, if there's a cap on their broadband, if you're not watching any cable and you're only watching 5 hours a day over the internet, someone might cap that, and you might say, "Oh, wait a second,
Can we just go back for a second?
Yeah.
A little bit of clarification. Do we mean children's puppets or like adult marionettes?
Well, we're going to day part it, of course. I'm really sort of thinking Indonesian shadow puppets myself. Very elegant, you know.
I don't think, see, you've stepped on a little bit of a landmine here. I don't think you know that in high school I traveled with a puppet show.
I didn't know that, but you just exude puppeteer.
I was an excellent puppeteer. I still have some very fine puppets in my collection.
But anyway, this is why you have been so successful starting companies. And
we could go down that track, but we don't have enough time. We only have a few minutes left, and we have to talk about the big news from last week that was not positive.
So, again, Steve really did invent, user-generated video news when he gave people camcorders on MTV in 19 but what do you make? So CNN is saying we're going to de-emphasize iReport.com and this community they've built up and say anybody who wants to send stuff to us, put it up on Instagram or any social media and just hashtag CNN iReport.
So I'm incredibly disappointed. When iReport launched, they did this. This is 2006. This is a long time ago. They were very early, and they did this weird thing where they said anyone can upload to iReport, and it will go live without being reviewed. And they made this whole big speech about how we're not going to edit it. It's not our editorial, but it had the CNN logo on it, and they got dinged. They had a couple of terrible experiences. One was somebody on iReport announced that Steve Jobs had died, when in fact he hadn't died, and there were a couple of bad iReport, like the CNN brand got tarnished by it. But they never, what I didn't understand was you saw all of these trends toward more user-generated content, and rather than reach into iReport and build a review process and make it better and own what was going to then be Twitter and Facebook and all these other things, they basically let their core audience of makers float away to other social networks, and now they're essentially throwing in the towel and saying, people don't want to submit to us, so we're just going to go get it where it lives in this, and it's very disappointing to me.
Well, they have had a community. There are moderators. They have an assignment desk. If you go look at the comments on their blog post announcing this, I mean, there are people who have been participating. And there is some sort of editorial review process, but their numbers are that it's fallen off. I don't know how much they've invested in it, but the question here is how much of citizen journalism is the hobbyist versus the I'm just a normal person who's never thought of myself, but the meteor just fell next to me, so I whip out my camera.
One of the problems they had with iReport was people started reporting on things where there was a blurry line between their objectivity and whether or not they were working for the company was paying a journalist to do a story about the company, and then they were submitting it to iReport. There were.
That's good. That's a problem probably a bigger problem on Instagram and all that too.
Indeed, it is. I guess all I'm saying is, when I look at all the news organizations that you and I both know, and we know a lot of them, who are simply saying, we're going to go and scour the social media for breaking news or for, I think they're to me, if I want to send my story to the New York Times or to NBC or to CNN, it's because I'm a reader/viewer of those services and I want them to see my content. And I think that they should all be building loyal, addressable, unique audiences. Now, they can also go out and search the social media, but I think to give up being a destination is a mistake.
And it's a question of, again, the destination, what they built was a group of people who were hobbyists around this and wanted to do it and participated. That's the thing, and it may well be that sort of army of amateurs, not occasional first time, I just whipped out my camera because I saw something, but I'm learning some skills here. That's an interesting, farm team for them if it's real, but they're saying, they didn't make that community vibrant, or it just left, wandered away on its own as people didn't need them anymore, because their numbers were what did they say? That iReport.com, as both viewers and contributors, had 483,000 unique visitors in May, down over 2 years from 1.2 million. So they're a third of their former size. So something went wrong.
And with that, we once again are out of time. A fabulous half hour. Nice to see you again.
It is great to see you. We're chugging along. As always, we are a destination, and we're on social media. We are HackingTV.news. We are on YouTube. We are on iTunes. We are on Waywire. And, you can always find us. We're on Twitter. We don't have a Facebook page yet. If you want us to have one, let us know.
And with that, we are out of time. Saul, lovely to see you. We will see you again next week.
Hacking.